Hey, and welcome to another week of Try Knoxville. Mike Roberts along for the ride again. And this week we have Mayor Brian Hatch in the studio with us right now. And first of all, Brian, thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know it's been a busy year for you already, and this last few weeks hasn't been any easier.
No, it has been busy, but thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
You know, we always get into the meat of the interview later on, so let's start off with the easy stuff first. You were born and bred here. I mean, you were raised right here in Knoxville, and you've chosen to stay in Knoxville. Tell us about your youth.
Yeah, I think it was probably fairly typical to most kids growing up. Just having fun, being a kid, hanging out with your friends, enjoying the town. There was a point there as you start to grow up. You know everything when you're 15, 16, 17 years old, and
Yep.
I played baseball. I played a lot of baseball. And I was going to school. I was going to go to college and play baseball. And I thought to myself, well, I'm going to get out of here. I've got way bigger things.
This sounds familiar.
Yeah, I got way bigger things I need to do. This will be great. And I'm going to take off and go play baseball, and everything will be great. And I did. I left. Great experience for me. But the funny thing is, it did not take me long to figure out where my home was at. It was really, really quickly that I called back home and I said, I think I know what I'm going to do when I'm done.
Right.
And my mom said, really? It's not what you've been talking about. And I said, well, things change, I guess. Because it just makes you appreciate Knoxville. For me, my childhood was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't ask for anything better. Family, friends, the events that we got to do, just the people that I got to hang around, everything was just so comfortable for me. I remember going to college, and I talked to kids that grew up in like the Denver area or the New York area, and they would always laugh and make fun of me. They said, well, so the person like cutting your hair. I said, well, yeah, it's a friend of ours,
Right.
Well, they just blew their mind. They said, that's so weird, And I said, well, that's the nice part about it. I like that. I know who they are. I have that connection. And so it just was really it was kind of shocking to me, I guess, that I didn't foresee that in my future. As I was growing up, of course, you're a kid, you know everything, and how quickly that changed when I got away from home. Like, oh, I like home. This is a good place to be. So, again, it didn't take me long to figure out this is where I want to be. This is where I want my kids to grow up and have their experiences.
When you were in college and you talk about those friends, I recall a story of my racing days, if you will, and a buddy of mine came traveling back with me, and he grew up in the metro area next to Chicago, and I kept talking about my neighbor. I grew up with my best friend who's my neighbor. Well, my neighbor on a farm grew up 3 miles away from me, but that's our neighbor.
Yeah.
That's the way this small community is.
Yep.
I beat feet out of here, too. As soon as I crossed the stage, I'm like, I'm gone. I'm going to the big city. I was back a couple weeks later. For one thing, I kept coming back here every Saturday night racing, but,
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. So when you decide to move back here, and then we'll talk about your baseball career in a little bit, too, because right now you have to be going stir crazy because it's baseball season, baby, and we're locked down.
Yes, we are. It's tough time for the Hatch House right now in the baseball world, yes.
I know. When you decide to come back here, what were your goals? I mean, to change your lifestyle of I'm going to get out of here, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know what? Home is a nice place to grow up. What were your goals when you came back to Knoxville?
Yeah, I had finished playing baseball and was pretty content there, so I was real comfortable knowing that I was done with that chapter of my life.
Right.
I was ready to kind of move on, start my life, get a job. Those are my main goals. Probably because my dad said, you got to get out of here and find a job.
Exactly.
No, that was 3 days after I moved back from college, so he wasn't real patient with me. But
Yeah.
Basically, I don't know if I really had a whole lot in mind when I first came back, outside of, hey, you got to go get a job, let's start a life, get a house, start your family type of thing. My wife now, we had met in high school, knew each other, and so we had been in communication a lot throughout college. And so I had a pretty good idea in the direction I wanted to go, when I got back. And so soon after that, we were dating And that kind of, I guess you see where we're at now.
That connection was important because back then it wasn't as simple as just sending out a tweet or Twitter or whatever you call those things, or Facebook or
Yeah.
nothing. I mean, that you took some time to communicate.
Yeah, you did. In fact, that was when, for me anyway, internet and email was brand new. I didn't have email, and she had to explain. We would write letters back and forth.
Sure.
And she was telling me that they had. She went to UNI, and she said, "We have email. Can you get email? We could type letters back and forth." I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm sending you mail right now.
Exactly.
You know?
You talk to your postman. What's this thing?
Yeah,
Anyway.
exactly. Yeah. And it just blew my mind. So I would walk down to the library in the evenings and get on their bing ding 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 Netscape, dial up that internet, and I created an email account that I didn't know what I was doing, and that's how we first started to communicate, was through email. And so yeah, it's kind of funny looking back.
It's funny how technology changed. I was watching a movie several years ago with my daughter, and it was an old type email when they dialed up. We had the fax machine sound of the email or the connection of the internet hooking up. And she's like, "What is that?" That's how we had to wait that long.
Right. Yeah.
So you came back. You kind of knew the plan. We're going to start dating. We're going to start courting. I mean, at what point it's like, okay, I'm going to say, hey, let's get married. What do you think about this idea? When did that happen?
That happened a couple years after I was back. She was just graduating from college, and it's kind of funny again. Probably my dad. He's guided me through most of my life. I got to give him credit, I guess.
Yeah.
He's kind of giving me those subtle reminders, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you waiting on here? Thing's not going to fix itself.
Yeah.
So I knew at that point, I'm like, well, she's getting ready to move on with her life. If I don't make a move here, she's going to move on without me, type of thing.
Right.
So I think that's probably what pushed me more than anything, just knowing that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. I better get on board here because she's going to go without me if I don't go. So
sure.
Yep.
And obviously that worked out. You guys are married.
It did.
Got some great kids.
Yep. So pretty fortunate. 3 kids.
Where were you working at when you first came back?
It's kind of a funny story how it all comes full circle. I first started working. I was computer drafting was kind of where I was at, and what I really liked doing. I'm into art. I like to draw a lot, and so drawing on the computer was fun for me. Kind of passionate about that. I started working in Des Moines, a random place. I just, they had an ad open. They needed a drafter, and I thought, okay, great start for me.
Right.
So I started working there. Meet the guy. My boss happens to be from Pella. Didn't know that. So we had a connection together. A great guy, super good guy. I worked there for probably about a year, and decided I want to be, again, closer to home. I didn't like that drive to Des Moines, and I moved to Vermeer and started working at Vermeer. That was right before they had their big shutdown, their layoffs, when they started slowing down.
Sure.
I'd only been there about 6 months, so I knew, I could see the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
They had been talking about it for a couple of months. Got laid off there, and I thought, oh boy, what am I going to do? Well, my mom calls me. She says, there's an opening at the county engineer's office. Would that be anything that you would be interested in? I said, well, I don't know,
It's a job.
Yeah. Well, so I go out there, and it all works out. I get a job, and at that time, Roger Schlutzbaum was the county engineer, and we're talking after I'm hired, and he starts talking about this gentleman that he had talked to. And I said, well, who are you talking about? And he mentions my boss in Des Moines. I said, well, how do you know that guy? He said, well, they're the ones that do all of our bridge consulting for the county. And I thought, I'll be darned. Well, I'm glad I didn't make that guy mad when I left.
Kidding.
So
yeah.
it all worked out. And so, and I still work with that guy today through the county, at the county level. So it's really cool how it's all kind of come full circle.
You've had the opportunity, and Roger's since retired. Roger the gardener now, not Roger the engineer.
The green thumb.
The green thumb gardener. So I tease him about that. They got a nice place up there in Pleasantville.
It's great, and what they do, it's just amazing. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's pretty neat stuff. Talk about your job a little bit here, just a little bit. We're going to touch on it because you do have to separate the two after you run for mayor later on. But you work for the county. You're in the engineer's office. What exactly are the details of your job? What's a day in the life with Brian Hatch?
Well, when I first started, it was drafting, so I would do a lot of the computer drafting, and they needed help surveying. And so there was a gentleman that was kind of the lead surveyor, and he would say, "Come on, let's go, come help me." Well, I was the young guy who could crawl in and out of ditches, and so and the lowest guy in the totem pole.
Sure.
And so that's where I ended up, and I would spend a lot of time with him when I wasn't in the office drafting. I'd spend a lot of time out in the weeds just holding the survey rod for him so he could get measurements. And that evolved over time. 8-10 years later, he retires, and I become the survey guy, all of a sudden. So now I'm drafting and surveying, and so that went on for a while. And one of the board of supervisors now,
Right.
Steve McCombs,
Mm-hmm.
worked in the office at the engineer's office with us for years. He retired, and so 3 or 4 years ago, I don't know, time flies now, I don't know when, he retired, and I filled in for his position. So now I'm the second assistant to the engineer, which I still do a lot of the mapping, drafting, stuff like that on the computer, but now it's more personal relation, information, research, right-of-way, that kind of stuff. So a lot of personal interaction with the public.
You've got things really going strong for you. You've gotten married. You're having kids. You got a great job. You're still active in the baseball. And then all of a sudden you went, hey, let's do one more thing. Let's run for mayor.
Yeah, well, and I'm making all that sound really good. I mean,
Yeah.
don't make it sound, look, don't ask my wife. She's going to give you a completely different story here. I'm going to make it sound real good. But
Exactly.
she may not. But yeah, things are going well. Really fortunate. Couldn't ask for anything more. But then I did.
Right.
I've always been an interest of mine. I'll go back to work again. When I first started working at the county engineer's office, Sharon Dennison was our office manager.
Right.
She happened to be a city council member at the time. And she would talk about, different things that were going on. We have a meeting tonight, and that always tweaked my interest. Whether I really knew it or not, I was asking questions. I just because I was interested.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked a lot of questions. I was always concerned. And she stopped me one day and she said, you need to get involved. She said, I can tell you like this kind of stuff. You need to do this. And I said, no, that's crazy. I don't know. She said, yeah, this is something you need to do. So as the years went on, I found myself getting more and more passionate about this type of thing. And I would get more involved, whether it was with the Chamber of Commerce or just an event that I was going to be a part
Sure.
of. And so I did. I went home and, I had to give my wife that look, and she gave me her look back. Like, I know this isn't going to be good. What do you got here?
Exactly.
Just let it out now. Let's get it on the table. And I said, well, I'm thinking about maybe running for mayor. She said, what? What? I said, yeah, I said, I think I can give back. I said, and so I kind of explained it to her just like this. I said, I love it here. We love it here.
Right.
What can we do to make it the best place possible? I want my kids here, because the one thing that I appreciate the most about being here today is my kids being able to see my parents. They love seeing grandma and grandpa, and so
Sure.
I can take them every day. I live 5 blocks away from them, and that we can walk up there. I can drop them off there. We can go play. They can see them. And so I told my wife the same thing. I said, really, that's my goal. I want my grandkids here. I want to see my kids. I want my grandkids to be here. So I said, what can we do? How can we give back? What can we do to make this place great? Make our kids' experience great, all kids' experience great, so they all want to come back here, and this place can just grow and thrive.
Right.
And so that's really kind of where it started, with an idea about like that. And she kind of, maybe kicked me off to the side a little bit for a while, and I was persistent.
This will go away.
Exactly. Yep. Just let him go. He'll forget
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for her, I didn't. I just kept going, and she could tell that it was something I wasn't going to let go of. And she said, well, if it's something you really want to do, let's pursue it. And I said, well, I want you on board.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I need you on board. At that point, we had 2 boys, and she said, yeah, I think so. And I said, well, it'll be a lot on our plate. I think we can do it.
How old were the boys then?
Well, let's see. Gosh, so they would have been about 12, I think. Well, I got to think about this now.
You were in 2020.
He was 9,
Yeah.
9, I think. Mason
Yeah.
would have been around 9, and Jackson would have been around 5 or 6.
Wow.
So yeah, they're growing up.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, this will be a lot. So we decided, yeah, let's take the leap here. Let's try it. And it didn't seem like it was short after that. My wife walks in, and she gives me one of those looks, and I'm thinking, this can't be good.
Mm-hmm.
What's the look? She says, hey, I'm pregnant. What? I said, what?
Put that off the side, Brian.
Exactly. Yeah. This will go away.
Yeah.
This will go. Yeah. So after I figured out that wasn't going away, I said, "Oh boy, now we really got a full plate."
Yeah.
And we dealt with it just like everyone else. And so now we have a real boss of the house, a little girl, Lucy, and she takes care of everyone. So it all worked out. But yeah, it was a little bit of a shock to the system there at first. I was not expecting that, with everything else going on.
You win as mayor, first term, and the shock factor has to take over sooner or later, because I know I've been there outside looking in. It's like, oh, this isn't that big a deal. You meet twice a month, an hour meeting, sometimes hour and a half. That's about it. But just budget season alone is what I call it, which used to be kind of a 5 or 6 week period, but literally is a whole quarter and then some. I mean, it's an all year deal. You guys are fiscally responsible for the city itself.
Yeah.
That really has to work on a person's A, attitude, and B, stress. And then everybody, and I'll say it, you don't have to, and you don't have to agree with me. If you don't, everybody comes in and say, hey, Brian, I've known you since you were playing baseball. I want this done in my yard. And there's still rules, regulations, codes, and then you're the bad guy all of a sudden.
Yeah, it is hard. It's hard to separate that business from the personal relationship, because you do have so many personal relationships.
Sure.
I've always kind of joked around about it with some of my friends and family, saying, when it first happened and I was elected, it's always super easy to drive the car from the back seat.
Right.
And then they hand you the keys, and all of a sudden you kind of stop for a second and say, oh, now what? Okay, now I got them. Now I got to drive the car.
Right.
And so it was scary. It really was. And I was, I just didn't know where to go with it. I was actually very fortunate. I'd known Harv Sprofka for years throughout different things, and I reached out to Harv, and he was and has still is today. He's been a great mentor for me, just helping me, give me guidance, and kind of giving me clues, and expect this or that, or you don't know what to expect, basically,
right.
kind of thing. So it was great having him around. So I really appreciate his help throughout the years. But it's overwhelming, and it's a hard time, because you come in January, which is right in the heart of the budget planning. Because
I always thought that was a weird time to come in.
It is. It's super difficult, and so all of a sudden you're right in the meat of this budget planning, and you got to have it approved in another month, and it's going to go out in March to the state, and so everybody's looking at you and asking questions, and you don't know what to think.
Right.
It's a little overwhelming. So it's a tough position.
I used to joke, council members have to run for election every 4 years, but the mayor has to run every 2 years. And I used to joke, I said, that's because they can get out faster.
Exactly.
But you keep on running, you keep on getting in there, and the nitty gritty of it all. At what point, I don't want to say does it get easier, but does it become more structured in your own personal life of, okay, I've dealt with this 2 years ago now, I know how to deal with this? I mean, when did you realize that, okay, I do have a hold of this wheel, I can drive this car?
Yeah, good question, and that it really it takes a couple years. It really did for me, and because a lot of those things they only happen so often.
Right.
And so when you're doing a budget, you're doing it one time throughout the year, and then you pass time, and then the next year it comes around. So it's not like you're doing those things at a normal job. You're maybe doing them once every week. You get pretty used to it pretty quick. When you're only doing things once a year, it's tough to settle in on that kind of stuff.
Right.
By the time you kind of think you have it figured out, a year passes by, and now you forget everything that you learned. So it's a little relearning every year. But no, it did. It took a couple years to just start to get comfortable where I felt like I belonged. And now it's funny how time goes by. You go from that person, you're new, you really don't know much, you're trying to catch up and learn everything, to now I'm kind of that person that's been there longer than most of the council members or all the council members, and so it just quickly changes and evolves on you. So it's weird how fast that happens.
In all local government, there's a lot of turnover, whether it be council, whether it be employees and stuff, and you have to be the face of Knoxville. That's where people get confused. They think as mayor you have the voting power, you have everything to do with making decisions. In all reality, you are the conductor of the orchestra, if you will. You show guidance, you lead, but at the end of the day, it's not your vote.
Correct. That is correct, and it is a big misconception from a lot of people. They say, well, why don't you do this or tell them? I said, well, I don't have that ability. I said,
right.
I can suggest things and give them guidance and my information that I have. But I said I don't have that vote. I don't veto. I said I don't have that. Well, you can break this or you can break the tiebreaker.
Right, right,
no,
right.
None of those things. And some forms of government are set up different for each community. We have I think what it's called a weak mayor system. Go figure. I'm the weak mayor.
You said that, boss.
Yeah,
I didn't.
exactly. Everybody knows it. I might as well say it. So you guys have a weak mayor. You all know it. So yeah, so it means that I don't have that ability. Some
Right.
people do have that ability to maybe veto a vote or break a tie, that kind of thing, and I do not. So no, it really is me just getting out there and trying to promote Knoxville and put our best foot forward for whoever it is, whether that's businesses, people wanting to come in, new community members, residents wanting to live here. We just want to put our best foot forward and give them our first impression, so we can have them come here and live in Knoxville.
You fell into what I consider a winning baseball team, if you will. You've had 3M already here in Hormel, and 3M's done some expansion since you've been on board. Wow, Weiler, holy cow, have they really expanded out. I mean, talk about, if you were looking for higher politics in your lifetime, whether it be state or federal, you can pad that resume, but you're more worried and concerned about Knoxville, and I appreciate that because I bring up all those winning qualities, but you also became a mayor during what I consider one of the biggest losing parts of our city with the VA shutting down, and you got caught up right in I don't want to say the beginning of it because it was already done when you took over the reins, but the transitioning of it. The feds couldn't give it away or sell it or whatever they were trying to do, and private companies couldn't get it taken care of, and you were launched into this role of, okay, you have this big facility right next to your job that you have to look at every day, and it had to be eating at you.
Oh yeah. I drive by there every morning on the way to work and every afternoon on the way home. So it was tough, and we knew how big of a deal it was getting into that. I knew it would be priority number one.
Right.
It was on everyone's list, and rightfully so. I knew it wasn't going to be an easy, quick project. It would be something that would take several years. I don't know if I knew it would take this long, but it did. It tested my patience, everyone's patience, I think. But here we are today, so I guess it all works out the way it's supposed to in the end. But it was a major undertaking, and I learned a lot. It was very educational for me, I'll say that.
For those that weren't keeping up with the news over the last 18 months, almost 2 years now, the city and county got together as partners and acquired the VA January 15th of this year. The deal was finally done. It had to go through the GSA process, and like you said, a lot of hoops. I know we talked about that before because nothing happens fast when it has the word federal attached to it.
Yeah, it was tough, and we you mentioned it. It's probably been maybe a couple years ago. We started to kind of go down this road where the VA had completed their outpatient clinic on the north end of town. At that point, they approached us and said, "We're done with our clinic. We're moving our operation out there. We're going to vacate an entire VA campus."
Right.
So this will start the process of removal. It's excess property for us. We're going to turn it over to GSA and see what happens.
Right.
So panic button kind of you hit questions, or we've got 1,000 questions. So things continue to kind of roll through. We figured this process out of how it's going to go. Will we have an opportunity to get our hands on it? How will this work? And this goes on for a while. And one day I kind of walk into the city manager's office, and I'm not so sure I maybe didn't hide behind the door because I was a little embarrassed. And I said, "I've got an idea." And I said, "But I don't want to say it out loud, until anybody can hear me." And he said, "Okay, fire away."
Right.
And as I'm hiding behind the door, I say, "Well, why don't we take the VA property?" And he's like, "Oh boy, another one of those stupid Brian ideas. Here we go.
We'll put that to the side again."
Exactly. It'll go away.
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, it's." He'd thought about it a lot too, and said maybe that's our best option. And so that's the point we kind of started that ball rolling,
Sure.
saying, is this really a possibility? And as things started to kind of evolve over the next 5-6 months, we figured out that we couldn't do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
It was just too big of a project for us to take on. We didn't have the capacity, even if we wanted to do it. The city's just not set up that way. Our budget, our borrowing capacity just could not absorb that big of a project. So we were fortunate enough. We partnered with the county, and the Board of Supervisors were on board right away. You know,
Right.
we couldn't ask for them to be any better of a partner for us. They understood the importance of it for not only Knoxville but for Marion County as a whole, and they came in right away saying, "What can we do to help?" Which was a blessing, and that really got things rolling at that point.
We mentioned January 15th. Everything finally came together, the big press conference, and since then we've all been dealing with the coronavirus situation. It's kind of a silly question to ask. How much has it slowed down where we want to be from point A to point B on the next level with the marketing of the campus? Because I know you have to market 2 buildings actively for 60 days.
Correct. Yep.
I know there's some archaeological studies you have to do. I know originally when we talked, the hope was that the south side of Pleasant Street, the campus where the duplexes are, the doctors' houses, would eventually become maybe senior living, was a hope of that. I mean, where are we with the steps now that the whole world's kind of stalled out for the last couple of months?
Yeah, good question, and it has taken an effect on that process. So we'll kind of start with the first one, the marketing of the 2 buildings.
Right.
We are currently working through that. We're putting together a request for proposals now that will go out to developers.
Okay.
They'll have a chance to send their proposals in for that 60-day period to say, this is our idea, we would like to do this to it. That will then go through, obviously, the county and the city's hands, and as well as state historical office.
Okay.
So we'll all 3 get a look at that and decide, is that a project that really would work? Is it good for the community?
Is it viable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it is, great. If not, if we don't have anyone interested, then those buildings will come down. They'd be free to be demolished or whatever we want to do with them at that point. So that is in the process. It hasn't slowed that down a lot. We're still working through that right now, trying to get everybody on the same page and just get all the documents ready. The archaeological study, it has slowed that down. We do have someone who's getting ready to do that. In fact, I think that we'd probably be pretty close to doing it right now. That the ground's thawed out, the weather's pretty nice, but they can't do it now.
Right.
They just said we can't leave, we can't travel, so we're going to have to wait. So that'll probably get delayed a few months, which is understandable.
Sure.
That's how it goes. As far as the development side, we're starting to work through that. The county and the city are both looking at, we would like to have a master plan, a development plan to go by, something that I think would be great for us
Right.
now and for people in the future. We know this is going to be a long, drawn-out project, and so we want those people that are involved. You see, you mentioned earlier the turnover in
Right.
council, board of supervisors, whoever it is. We'd hope to make that roadmap a little easier to follow for them coming in the next couple years. If it's 4 or 5 years later, whatever that is, 10 years later, they don't have to start over. They've got kind of a roadmap to follow. So that is kind of priority number 1. And within that whole entire development area, I think the south side of the highway of Pleasant Street would be the first place we would look at. I think it's the low-hanging fruit. The
Right.
houses would be easier to come down than the big buildings. So that may be a good place for us to start our development. And we started talks about that with the planners and different people saying this is kind of the area that we would focus on first. Also, utility-wise, would probably be the quickest and easiest and cheapest place to service.
Right along there, yeah.
Because we already have service right close to there on
Right.
Park Lane. So that works out nicely.
If someone drives by or someone sees this show and is interested in, hey, you know what, I do build houses or I do build complexes, I want to check out this. You guys have a website, too, they can go to as well to learn more about this.
Yeah, and so we have, from the beginning, we talked about the VA campus in itself. It's always been here. It's been a big part of Knoxville, and we didn't want to forget that.
Right.
We wanted to honor that, and so we kept that theme going forward. This whole area out here will be considered the Veterans District, the Knoxville Veterans District, and so we do have that. We do have a website. I probably should be able to tell you what it is off the top of my head. Knoxville Veterans District, I think, .com or
Okay.
something like that.
We'll roll that across the screen as we're talking about it later on.
Yep.
and edit.
You we can get that as everybody's way more technological savvy.
You're still trying to
I
figure
am.
out email. Is
I
that what it
can't-
is?
Yeah, exactly. Again, yeah, I have to have my kids set up my phone for me. So yeah, it's not
No,
good.
it's good.
But yes, we do have a website they can go to, and they can reach out to the Board of Supervisors.
Sure.
They can reach out to me, City Hall, anybody that's involved in the project, and we would love to talk to them. Yeah, if somebody's interested, that would be great.
And the biggest thing we want to let everybody know, and this is where I had you on the show too, is even though this whole worldwide virus is going on right now and slowing things down, yeah, we might be in third gear if driving down the road, but we're still in granny gear. We're still moving forward on this project.
Yes, we are. We're moving forward, and I do. I want to say to the people to be patient,
Right.
and it will. And I know it is exciting. I
Yeah.
know we've asked for your patience for the last 10 years.
Exactly,
And then
exactly.
we do turn the page, and it's easy to get excited. I'm that way.
Sure.
I want to go tomorrow. It's I want a house is built. But we have to take a step back and understand that it is a big project.
Right.
It is a big development. And so it will take time. And so we do have to be patient and let it kind of run its course. But sooner or later, we will get there. And as far as moving forward, I'm glad you mentioned it. We do have this, unfortunately, the pandemic kind of shutting things down right now. But I think it's important, again, for people to know in the community that we're still functioning. We're still moving forward. We're still doing work on our bike trails, that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, we're losing our chief of police.
Mm-hmm.
We're still in the process of finding and hiring a new police chief.
Right.
So all those things are still happening. Highway 14 project is still happening.
Airport's being tore up right now. Is this big?
Yes, that's a big deal. Yeah, the runway on the airport. So
Yeah,
all those projects, it will slow us down a little.
Right.
Like you said, I think we're in third gear, going down the road, but we're still moving, and
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah. The airport project just started up a couple weeks ago. That's going to take about 3 months to do. And again, for anybody who wants to try Knoxville, you need to come and see everything we're doing infrastructure-wise, highway-wise, street-wise, sidewalk-wise. And now you've got this big campus to deal with too. And if you're in the housing industry especially, hey, come out and check out Knoxville, because we want you to try Knoxville each and every time you look at us, whether it be for tourism, Knoxville Raceway visit, or whether you want to bring your business to town, or even try out and just move your family here, like Brian Hatch came back and started his own family here. Let's go back and relax a little bit the best we can, because I know you're jonesing like I am. I'm jonesing for the racetrack. We've been delayed on that. Baseball season, man. What's going on with this? I mean, are you going to make it?
I know, I'm struggling. I don't know. I can't watch my Cubs. I need my fix.
I know.
It's you wait all year, and then it's hard.
Plus, the kids are involved.
Yeah, we're a big baseball
Yeah.
family. It just kind of runs in our blood. We spend a lot of time on the baseball field, and it is tough. That we kind of center a lot of our spring and summer activities around that, and so a lot of times, today we find ourselves kind of looking at each other like, what are we doing? Like, aren't we supposed to be at the baseball
Going
field?
to be a
right
lot
now?
of catch going on in the backyard.
Yeah,
I can
so we
see.
do. We do. Even the 5-year-old, she's out there swinging the wiffle ball bat around, trying to hit balls. So yeah, it is tough. And like I said, I'm a big Cubs fan.
Yeah.
Love to follow the Cubs, and then it's just different not seeing baseball. But it is what it is. We'll adjust and we'll move forward.
At what point do we go and say, all right, I'm done being mayor, it's time to relax? Or do we have bigger admirations? Or, like I said, you just kind of got to hold the wheel now. You're in charge now and driving the wheel. So I don't encourage you to quit this, but is the boss, as in your wife, going to say, all right, I put this off the side and you're still doing it?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
And
she supports you big time. We're talking right now, but she does support you big time.
yeah, she does. But that question has been asked in
Right.
the Hatch house. I will say that. So, how long are we going to do this?
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. I'm happy to do it,
Right.
as long as I feel like I can balance it. I've always tried to keep my family first.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's important, and I talk to my kids a lot about that. I don't want anything that I do to take place of my family. And so if they're okay with it and we can all feel comfortable with that balance, I'm happy to do it. As far as moving up, any bigger aspirations? No, absolutely, absolutely not.
That move to the side may be out the door is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. So I'm happy to do this here
Yeah.
in my community to try to give back.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know. I don't know how long that'll go on. If I feel like I can balance it,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's working and the people are happy with it, then we'll continue to move forward.
I admire you for family first of all, the fact that you can balance things and the way things go. And I always say also, as long as you have something to contribute. I've seen not necessarily locally, but nationwide or statewide, whatever, where people stay in a position and they have nothing else to contribute, but they want that figurehead thing, and you're not that type of person.
Well, a lot of times I take everything back to baseball because it did center my life for a long time.
Sure.
A guy told me when I was playing, he said, when you're no longer having fun, you need to stop playing.
Right.
He said that's the way it is. And so I kind of almost look at this the same way. When I lose that passion, when I don't feel that desire to want to help, when it becomes a job for me where I say, oh, this is terrible, why do I have to go do this? Then I think it's time for me to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I'm not there. Where I still get up and I still have ideas. I got to stop myself from emailing the city manager and late at night or something when I have an email when I have an idea, thinking, oh, let's do this, let's do that,
right.
Kind of thing. So I still have that passion to make Knoxville better. What can we do? How can we do this? What can we work on? And in fact, just to get it out there, we're working on it today. Later on today, we're going to send something out to the media with this with the COVID-19 pandemic hitting the nation, hitting our community, hitting everywhere.
Right.
We've partnered together with some local community organizations and businesses, and we're going to try to send out a partnership with everyone in a neighbor helping neighbor program. We've kind of stolen that from a few other communities around the nation.
Sure.
And we're going to see what we can do with that and try to make it work. So we'll send that press release out today to kick that off. Just allowing neighbors to help each other out through this time. For people that are homebound, can't get out, can't get to the grocery store, hopefully it gives them an easy way to check in on their neighbors and maybe help each other out.
The slogan you might be borrowing, but ever since this thing started, I've seen it, you've seen it, neighbors are helping neighbors. That's what we do in Knoxville, Iowa.
Yeah. I think that's what makes us great, and as unfortunate as this situation is, it's also really heartwarming to hear the stories, to see these stories, just our businesses alone around here. I can't tell you how many people just step up. They ask questions. What can we do to help?
Yeah.
It's just so nice to hear that. You just let us know, what can we do? They want to help. They want to, if it's making face masks or face shields or donating gloves, whatever they can do. They just want to help, and that's just so neat to see. That's what makes our community great.
We have a history in our community, and we're tooting our own horn here a little bit. We've always helped each other. We've always led Jim Udemark on the Coaches versus Cancer thing nationwide for community our side. I mean, come on. I use Mr. C's as an example right now. One of the biggest dine-in restaurants that we have is Mr. C's. And if you're a race fan or local, you know what I'm talking about, this restaurant. And when the governor came down and said, all right, we can't do dine-in right now, the first thing I thought of was, what's Jay going to do? Because, I mean, that's the coffee hangout. That's the place to eat. Fortunately, it used to be a little duffer, and he had a drive-through set up already, and he's already got that thing set up for drive-through, and I cannot believe the lines that go through there every day at lunchtime. It's just unbelievable. That's what we talk about. When you come to our community, when you try Knoxville, we support those who help us out and who live here, and we stay faithful to each other.
Yeah. You said it best. I don't know if I could say it any better. That's exactly right.
And I don't get paid for this.
Well, I think I've got a good job for you.
Brian, thank you. I know you've got meetings coming up here in just a few minutes. I want to appreciate everything you do for our community. It's unbelievable, the steps you've taken, and I don't want your wife to hear this, but in my own mind, you can't quit until the VA project's completely done.
Oh.
Yeah, we both may be in the out the door.
We're in trouble. Yeah.
We had a chance to visit with Brian earlier this year. I got a hold of my buddy Brandon Bingham with Bing Bang Media. We put together this clip about the VA and about your passion for it, and we're going to play that at the end of the show. Again, thank you for coming in. We do appreciate you coming in, and we'll have you on again.
Well, I'm happy to be on it, and likewise, I want to thank you for everything you're doing. I don't know, I can't tell the public how many times Mike reaches out to me. We talk about all the great things in the community, and it's, what can I do to help? How can we promote Knoxville? What can we do to put Knoxville in a good light? And that's important. With as much negativity as out there today, whether it's social media or news, whatever it is, to have somebody that you can trust and say, hey, let's make Knoxville better. How can we do this? What can we do to put Knoxville in a good light and promote us in a positive way? I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So thank you for having me on and for everything you do. I think it's great.
All right, that's another edition of Try Knoxville. We invite you to tune in each and every week. We'll have this up on the internet, and you can replay the old shows as well. We'll see you next time. Until then, be safe.
Thanks, guys.
As soon as I became mayor, I knew how big the VA was. You know, everybody talked about it. It was constantly a topic for everyone. So I knew it was a big deal, and I knew I needed to get involved. You hear so many things, like everyone around the community, what's going on? What's happening with this thing? So I started asking questions, and that was a task in itself, just trying to get to somebody to talk to that had an answer for me. They do have a process, and you have to be patient with that process and let them work through it. You find out pretty quickly working with the federal government, sometimes you're along for the ride. You know, they have what they need to do, and when they're ready, they'll move on it. There's two major things, basically, for the most part, that we have to work through right now. First off, the two oldest buildings, the original buildings that were built in 1905, I believe, building number 27 and 28, those two will be marketed for preservation for a 60-day time period. After 60 days, if we don't have anyone interested, we're free and clear. Those buildings can come down, we can do whatever we want with them at that point. The second part of that would be the archaeological side of it. So we do have some areas of interest. So we have to do a phase 1 archaeological study on some of the undisturbed areas, just to see if there's anything there that is of interest to them, any historical pieces there. Everybody talks about, oh, we'll tear the buildings down and we'll get moving. We've talked to people that said they could have a full crew here for more than a year just tearing buildings down. So it's quite a project that I don't know if some people understand how major of a deal this could be. I don't think we can absorb 300 houses in a year or two on the market for us. It'll have to come in several phases over several years. So our plan would be to start small and get a couple of wins there. You know, maybe, like I said, start on the south side of the road, on the south side of Pleasant, where we don't have as much demolition, and possibly start to gain some momentum with a few residential places there, whether that's townhomes or duplexes, single family. We don't know the details at this point, but we would like to start with some residential and get that momentum going. It's nice to turn the page finally. It seems like we were stuck there for so long waiting. Would this happen? There's so many unknowns. You know, just constantly telling people, be patient, wait, it'll happen. So finally to be able to turn the page and kind of start that next chapter, it was great. It's a huge win for Knoxville and Marion County. We're a manufacturing city, county as a whole. You know, we have a lot of manufacturing. We bring a lot of people into work. I would love to see us take advantage of those people and have them stay here, live here, spend their money here. Our schools grow, our businesses grow, everything gets better. So I just think it's such a huge opportunity for Knoxville to grow and thrive. And that's why, you know, we've put so much time and patience into this. We knew how big of a deal it could be for our community, for the county as a whole. That's one of the reasons I am so passionate about it. You know, I'm here, born and raised here. This is my community, just like everyone else that's here. We love it. We want to see it thrive.